It's a beautiful day here in Vancouver, a beautiful Wednesday. Looking forward to this conversation again. We love having Carl Gutsche from Mining Hub. We really like this platform. I always want to get interesting conversations, people who've got strong opinions, something that's going to educate people. And this platform and this tool, and I've got some questions as to how it was created, why it was created. As far as I'm concerned, this is such a great tool for people to get focused on, especially right now. We're coming into holidays, to start playing with, to get familiar with, so that they can find companies in this sector, in the mining sector, that are hitting good results, to understand where they are, what they're looking for, all that data. This is a data mining platform. And we're going to go over some of the basics again, just to get people familiar with this, because the more you use this thing, the better off you're going to be. It's such an important tool for us. And let's just jump in right now and welcome, Carl. It's great to have you back on again.
Yeah, hey, thanks so much for setting this up. Happy to be here.
No, of course, we love it. Like whenever we find something that is this useful, and once again, there's a free version for people too, so it's not like you have to go buy the premium. Of course, you'll tell people why they should, but it's a way to get people in and get them excited about this space and kind of cut through. There's a lot of noise, and it's sometimes a bit of a bar to entry that people feel intimidated by, and we want to break down as many of those obstacles as possible. And once again, the fact you've got daily emails going out with asset results, financings, any significant changes, weekly summations of that. It's just very simple way to get people to look and go, oh, that looks like a good result. So what made you even consider wanting to get into making a platform of this nature?
It wasn't the workload associated with it, that's for sure. But my background kind of comes from the mining sector, various capacities, but from boots on the ground all the way to more the IR corporate development side. And I mean, throughout any level of it, it's always been a challenging space to keep tabs on what's going on. After that, wearing more of an investor hat, similarly challenging. There's just as you said, there's a lot of noise out there, and there's not a lot of resources that really break everything down. And again, on your point, it's a high bar to entry. So for us, I think the goal here is modernizing and simplifying that for people, bringing more people in, because it's a very valuable sector that's not going anywhere. And if anything, it's a really exciting time in it right now. So it's good for us. We're happy to be here, and we're happy to support. And we've had a lot of strong not headwinds, but followings kind of coming from what we've been doing, and it's good. I think the market's appreciating it.
Absolutely. I know more and more people bring it up to me, and I get to chat to companies all the time. I mean, you are obviously as well, but it's great to see that people are acknowledging it, because it's easy to look at, it's easy to read. It could get complex to use, but at first blush, it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. Like if I just want to get in there and go, oh, like what today had assays, like, and we'll get into that. You'll walk us through. But
sure.
Those are the key things for anybody, whether they're a pro, whether they're an analyst, whether they're a geoscientist, if they're in the field, if they're not in the field. I mean, if they're just at home retail investor, you can get into this thing very simply. And it's pretty step by step, and that's what we need. And that's what we really appreciate about this, because I've looked at other platforms that not to mention any, but there's a clutter there. And that right off the bat, I don't love. And it's just like, well, there's too much happening here. Where do I even look? What do I do? And that's not the case here. This is very data driven, which also I really appreciate. And I'm a data-driven guy, but I'm also on that flip side of, we talk about companies we like. I promote the mining space. There has to be some promotion, but it's good whenever you can just go, there's the data.
Yeah,
that's it.
I totally agree. And I think, look, like yourself and myself, but everyone else as well, these days, one of our most precious commodities is time, right? And I think, you got to be able to see everything. For us, it's transparency of information, and that's kind of where we focus it. And we took a lot of time in laying out how we were going to do this, but so that we're cognizant of people's time, we're saving time for people. And again, it's not, for us, this isn't a spin on what we're putting forward. Like, we're not driving narratives for Mining Hub. You're going to see everything in there. There's no, it's apples to apples, right? So that's part of it. But we can share a screen here if you like.
Yeah, let's get in. Yeah, because I'll just say, like, I had a meeting with a company last week, and it was. And they reached out to me, but it was just, I saw, and I was like, wait a second, I know this company, because they popped up on an email for you where they had great results. I was like, I don't even know who this company is. Who are these people? And I made a note of who they were, kind of wrote it down. I was like, I need to reach out to these people because that was a great result. And now I happen to know great results, but I didn't even need to because it was on the top of the sheet that you send out in the morning saying, here's the width, here's the average grade. And you go, oh, even if I don't know what that is, you go, it's on the top. It looks pretty good.
I'll pull up our email first here. This goes out, days when the market's open. And bear in mind, we have a North American email and then we have an ASX one. I think, as I mentioned last time, it's just too much to stack it all into one. And we like to put these out right before the market opens when it's most relevant. So for us, what we're seeing here is a breakdown, a categorization of every news release that came out. So we don't say, hey, look, that's not material enough. And we don't make that call. It's all in here. And it's stacked. It always starts with drilling results on the top, and then we always provide a visual kind of breakout. So this might be what you're referring to, or I don't know if it was one of those companies, but nonetheless, any one of these, we're also going to denote a flag beside it. So that's going to basically say, well, what country is this project? With the news article about as the primary in there. Sometimes a company might talk about multiple projects, but we'll flag it to the most relevant thing. But then we'll see a visual breakout, top intercept, one per company, and how those kind of stack. Again, just because a result might be lower, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not as material. Jurisdiction plays a big role. There's a lot that goes into projects and stage, and it could be a twin hole that somebody had here or whatever else. But again, for us, we put the context out there so people can kind of see it. Then we get into the updates of drilling, M&A, all this sort of stuff, financings, private placements. So it's really just the buckets that are relevant, I think, mostly to either investors or to industry. That's how we try to break it out. Because look, it's a lot. I don't know what the count was this morning before market open, but anyhow, that's kind of how that goes. So for today, this went out at 6:15 a.m. Pacific or 6:17 or something. Anything that comes after that throughout the course of the day, because some PRs will come out, that'll be captured in the next day. So that's kind of how we break it out in that email. But it's a great way to get a snapshot of what the heck's going on. When you do click on any one of these press releases, it's going to open up. If you're on mobile, it'll just be the press release. But if you're desktop, you'll see the press release, and then we'll zoom into where that project actually is in the world. So again, that's a lot of, I think, the meat and potatoes behind what enables us to do it. What we can do is we map the projects. So Volcanic happens to be a company we know pretty well. And there's a lot of information populated about them on here. But, we'll have, if they did drop news about a project that we didn't have in the system, as soon as it crosses the wire, our team goes and acquires that and brings it in. So you can kind of rely on, anytime you're on this map here, any of these pins here are news from the given day. And you're going to see where all of them are. There are instances where, a company doesn't even tell you where the hell the project is. And the hands are somewhat tied in those instances. It's very rare, but it can happen.
But yeah, and that's why I wanted to kind of break it down into these steps. And you mentioned some of the nuanced portions that are important. Even before someone knows what a twin hole is or anything, is that even if they just look and they go, oh, that's on the top of the list. Now, once again, and even if they just look at the color, that doesn't even mean it's a great result or it's a bad result necessarily. Yeah. But if they just think, oh, I see a lot of blue in the silver, or I see a lot of gold in the gold intercept, they can click on that. It'll take them to where that project is. So it's like one step. They go, do you know anything about that region? Or do you like to go, oh, do they do my like it just helps people get to the next layer of, okay, that's interesting. And then what should I know more about this? Oh, there's 30,000 meters done on this project already, or this is their first hole. You start asking questions. And I think for someone who's already in the space, it's obvious how you can walk through. But I always try to put it through with someone who doesn't know, and they look, and then they start asking questions. And because it's visually appealing, they can see what country it is, what it's close to. It makes asking some of those questions a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just clicking at this one here. I mean, again, I know this company and this project, but I mean, if I didn't, right? I mean, from the email here, we could see right away what country they were in, just based on that. But also, once we're in here, depending what the size of that country, is there road access? Is this a fly-in project? Is there a port nearby? Are there any other players in the area, and who are they, and what have they done? What stage are they at? So all that sort of stuff's relevant, I'd say. When you're trying to understand it, and for whatever context, right? I mean, even if it's a junior geo that's looking at maybe trying to find work, and these guys have got a big program coming up, right? You know, it's good to know a little bit about the region, and that's what we kind of supply here, is we're a resource.
Well, it's great too, because even just like if you're a geo student, like if you're a master's student or you're just a student at UBC or wherever, this is a huge resource too. If you're like, hey, I'm going to do a project on this project, or I'm interested in getting data on this project. I mean, it doesn't have to be just for the investment side. I mean, there's relevance to all sorts of people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I think in this industry in particular, like, you know, any of the, well, you said you were talking to somebody that was on it the other week. And I mean, you know, peer analysis is a big part of our job when we're working for mining companies. Like, you kind of got to know what the market's doing, what they're going to react to, and what's relevant in your region, right? And what projects are being, who's getting financings, at what amounts, right? Like, it's peer analysis is a big part of it. I mean, sentiment drives a lot in this industry.
So maybe let's just take a big, huge step here before we get into like all the core features and capabilities, because I think we can get there by just saying, let's take a look at this volcano, the one you already brought up. If if I'm a new user and I log in and I just go, you know what, Carl said I should take a peek at this. I know you haven't, but you mentioned this one. How do I go about doing that? So if I'm a brand new user, I log in, I want to look up that company.
Sure. Let's go. I'll go incognito here. Let's go app. So app.mininghub.com will bring you in. You can tell this thing to bugger off, and you can create a login, or you can use it without a login. We're not going to require that. We will pester you to, because it's valuable for us to know that, but we won't force your hand in that way. You're still going to come in and have a lot of the flexibility of what you can do on the app here. So all of these pins, you know, as I say, these different colored icons, and the coloration just denotes a few different things in the legend here. But you're always going to be looking at a present day snapshot. If you wanted to kind of click on any of them, you drive in. You can also search on the top here. So we were looking at volcanic. So volcanic gold mines, we could view them. They're all projects, or we could dive into a specific one and jump into what that view kind of looks like. Hopefully that worked and didn't break. I've got a lot of tabs open here. Oh, there we go. I guess they're all in the same area. So yeah, so they've got a parcel broken out here of 3 different projects. So that's one way that we can kind of look and see that. So we can search by company in there. We can search companies here as well if we just want to pull up high level information. So let's do that. So at this point, we could view, you know, more of the stock information, all of the news kind of associated with these guys. So a couple different ways we can look at it. We're going to always pull out the key level stock information. So, you know, the market cap of a company, you know, bid ask, all that sort of general stuff that you normally see. That's just feeds that we pay for and have come in here. So that's, again, that's all free for anybody to come in here and use that sort of stuff. You can search for other things in here. As an example, let's do golden triangle. So mineral belts, mineral jurisdictions, things like that. We've all kind of heard of the Golden Triangle. Maybe I mentioned it on the last call, but it's an area in British Columbia. A lot of things have come out of the Golden Triangle. It's a very hot zone. So we can look at that regionally and see who the players are in these areas. So mineral belts, things like that, you can search as well. You can look at companies' asset portfolios or the singular projects and dive in that way. The way that any of these work, you know, when you click on them on desktop here, you're going to be able to open up kind of a view on the right-hand side that's going to show you high-level information about that specific project. So the stage, the commodities, all that sort of stuff. And then we'll get the similar kind of breakout of stock information and news links. So that's always the same format across the board. When you do see colored ones on here, there's just going to be more information about those companies here. In those cases, we've just, you know, we have their website material linked over here. So for Northwest Copper, you know, what they have on for the Croy Bloom project is going to be populated here. But that's just to denote the color kind of difference there.
Yes. And what's great, like say with Golden Triangle, for someone, once again, if they're just new, kind of looking, they go, oh, so Newmont has this over here.
Sure.
Who's around them? And they can look and go, oh, there's all these other companies. I've never heard of them. They can click on one and they can see, oh, they have got assay results, or they have not, or whatever. Like, it's a great way to even if someone goes, well, who are the biggest players? Who's around them? I mean, that's a good start to go do some research.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And like, and something like that, that's part of the free capabilities as well at this point.
Yeah, that's totally free to be able to come in here and do that. And we'll always kind of, and similarly, that email that I had open there, that's all free to get that sort of thing. If you create a login when you go in here, like register, that'll sign you up for the email. So that's the way to kind of get on that.
No, and that's great. And that's what we also like, is that it gets people at least using it at the beginning. And once they get comfortable, then you want to really kind of get on the features. And I don't want to jump there too quick because I know you're working on a bunch of stuff. You probably can't talk about some. Maybe you can hint. I don't know. But I'll let you kind of go.
Your best.
Yeah, some teasers out there for people that are like, ooh, what can I do with this? But maybe like walk through, like, when you're designing the interface, when you're designing how this would flow. I mean, to me, it's very thoughtful, obviously. And it's obvious that whoever's involved in the project has worked in mining, understands that there's a lot of data, and that it needs to be presented in a very friendly way. Otherwise, people get lost very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we try to kind of mirror, I think, as I said last time, like an Airbnb kind of model where it's spatial data, right? And we're talking spatial stuff here. Just like Airbnb, I mean, some houses go off the listings, or they get rebought by somebody else. So the same kind of happens in mining, right? Like an acquisition can happen, or somebody drops a project, a new project gets staked, that sort of stuff. So we have to kind of, on our side, that's on our team to manage that. And that's what we do, as any market data is kind of coming out there, assuming that it's, publicly pushed out there. On the Aussie side, the ASX side, it's a bit easier actually to do that than North America, because companies are obligated to disclose their tenement holdings. But Canada is another ball of wax altogether. And look, there's projects out there, so you might not see, you might, maybe if you're I'll take an example, you're a prospector, let's say, and you worked on a project. If you don't see it in here, the reason would be that, either the company doesn't want to put it up, or that project hasn't seen any direct news related to it in the last 2.5 years. So there's sleeper assets out there, no mistake about it. But the way that we have this on here and set up is that it's essentially publicly listed mining companies that have these projects. So we're not going down to the granular level of, little cells owned by a junior or by a geo or something like that. That's not really market relevant. And there's just, it's an endless rabbit hole of how much data we can put into here and what we can display. So we try to keep it high level to the important thing for the general public. And this is the way we've kind of figured out to do it. But everything's tied to, a company level, and then based upon the location of the projects. That said, there's lots of instances where multi-companies have an interest in a project. There could be an NSR on it, there could be a JV or an option agreement. So that's always denoted in there if we have visibility on it.
And so I like, because I mean, this is kind of asking the same question in a roundabout way, but because I can see this being used by all sorts of different factions of the market. Who was your kind of main target when you were thinking, who should I make this for? Because, and it's a trick question, because an analyst can use it, a retail person can use it, but I guess, who, I guess, what levels are each one? Maybe that's a better question, is what levels of usage are they made for?
Yeah, I'd say all, but I mean, it's always evolving. And look, we haven't been around forever either. We brought this online last January. So, we're just coming up on the 2-year mark here, but I'd say that the main avatars that we build pieces for and we model things for is, certainly a retail and institutional level there, and data associated with that. There's definitely a mining company, be that private or public, that has an application in here and things built specifically for them and tools associated. And then equally, I'd say a service provider capacity. And each one, and with those, I'd say, the ability to kind of hunt down or find work or know who's doing what in the area. Because they all, anyone that's invested in this space, whether they're working in it or investing in it, you kind of got to know the whole picture, right? If you're going to make informed decisions. And equally, as I said before, all of us fight for time in the day, so anytime you can not be wasting time missing things or not having a complete picture is a benefit. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it is kind of like that circular, is that the more people you have that are interested in wanting to know more, that really puts the onus on every company to be like, I need to be on this. And I need to be very forthcoming with as much data as possible, because the more you have and the more that you can work with, the more you can give to people.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think in that context, right? I mean, we're not putting our spin on any of the stuff that's displayed here. It's all publicly out there anyhow. We're just organizing it so people can actually use it and have a better idea of what the hell they're looking at.
That's the part that I think is key here, is that it's too easy to go onto other platforms and be influenced by someone else. That's very simple. And once again, it doesn't matter the platform, and I'm not picking on anyone. Just saying.
Yeah, for sure.
This is just simply, even if you're on some other platform, or even if you say, hey, Andrew said this was really good, you can go look and go, all right, Andrew said XYZ, put it in and go look to see, are they any good? Like, and even if you don't know a ton, you can see what have they done, what's the stock at, what are the assays, and get a sense of, oh, okay, no, they're doing stuff. This looks interesting. And that, once again, because there is no bias, there is no spin, it's just pure data. That's quite refreshing. And once again, it's the user interface is friendly and it's not intimidating.
I'm going to give you a kind of an example while you're saying that. So let's just say, like, Andrew, like if you're sharing something with somebody internally, like, you know, on your side, let's say we zoom into, I don't know, maybe we care about this lake here. That's a bit too zoomed in, but maybe here for whatever reason, right? We can essentially hit this button here and create a share link. So I can just dump this over to anybody, send it in WhatsApp or an email or whatever. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring somebody into exactly where we were and what we were looking at. So again, that's like, it's a powerful thing, right? You can write whatever you want in that WhatsApp message and say, hey, has anybody here been looking at these guys? Like, is this on anyone's radar? And you can draw on the image and say, hey, look at, like, what's this anomalous thing going on here? Or, and I say that like in this case, but, you know, you could have other features and layers turned on. Maybe it's market mover data associated with it, or maybe it's news over the past 30 days or 90 days or whatever you want. So that's baked in there so that it is a tool to be, because it's a tool, right? At the end of the day, for everybody, everyone's got a different use case, but it's, there's a lot of application for different reasons.
So that's a good, okay. You just showed, so if I say, hey, look at this, I could probably pull up, if it's a company too, like, would they have their, they wouldn't necessarily have any of their geo model, like that. Here's the blob we're targeting. Do they have that level of information?
It depends. So on the ones that you're going to see colored here, what we're going to do, and so this is standard uranium here. So we're going to mirror, like, our team has a relationship with standards. So if they have anything on their website associated with this project, I don't know if my incognito tab's working or not here, but that will essentially be populated on here.
Okay.
Did I bugger that up? Let's see here. Click on another one. I think I might just be loading. So basically, we'll if there's a geo model on there, we'll have all of that information associated and linked in. I don't know if you've worked with, like, verify products or things like that. So that information or those models, we integrate that into the system here too. So those will be there and it's all kind of viewable. So whatever's on here. So yeah, these guys, we can just jump into the project summary. So you can see it's all populated kind of in here. We're going to see the project. We've got all this. This comes directly from their website. So that's all on there. There's other levels that companies can elect to do where they can actually add their own layers to the system here. You know, in the case of COSA here, like, these guys are in the basin. I mean, you know, the idea with these layers for companies is to, you know, help people that are curious about them and understand it. This also lives on their website in many instances, but they can bring in, like, we're not trying to do a data repository dump of everything. It's not a data room, but you know, what we can bring in is relevant layers to the market here. So, you know, there's the one VD based, like, geophysical data that they've added in here. So that gives a little bit of color and context to what's going on, you know, surrounding this project. It could be drill results they bring in. It could be areas of interest or whatever they want, right? Like, every project's different. Maybe they highlight, you know, access to road or a proposed road or whatever they want. So those things are in there. That's stuff that companies can do. So I'd say definitely it's an advantage for them if they're opting in and doing that sort of stuff.
Now, there's another way that you're kind of saying, if I wanted to search then, because we're doing specific company or a region, you're saying by market movement. Can I just go and go, show me, once again, just show me what was moving last month, last week, whatever.
Yeah. So I'm switching over to my pro side here. I just got to
this is good distinction, because so this would be a pro if you want to get this level of data. Okay, good.
When we go to the pro, it switches over a little bit. A couple things change. Like it's largely the same as far as what we're going to see here in, like, the interface. Like, I have a different base map saved here, but we can keep it the same for simplicity. The bar on the right-hand side is a little bit different here. So some of these layers in here, we can just filter these directly in here. So we're looking at present day, but we could say, like, let's look at news over the last 30 days. And let's say, you know, maybe we're only interested in, I don't know, drilling results or drilling updates or something, right? So we can filter all that sort of stuff out and see exactly where the drill results were. And we could say, okay, well, that's too much. Like maybe I want to look at Quebec specifically and boil it down to that. Or boil it down by market cap or shares outstanding, things like that. So all that's kind of baked into that. As I guess another example, I was saying, market movers.
Yes.
So what our system is doing, because we're already correlating news to the most relevant project to that. So what we can do, and we're also, the system is looking and tracking the stock information for a company. So we can see, as an example, like what's moving the needle today of the news that came out. So this is just, we're looking at today. So it looks like Patriot. Are you familiar with Patriot?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, they had a pretty good news release that came out this morning, partnership with Volkswagen. And I think what's kind of cool about this is like, headline itself isn't going to necessarily tell you everything. Like, as you said, it's, you want to see what the market's reacting to. Doesn't necessarily mean the market's right or wrong, but it's good to kind of get a bit of a pulse on what's going on. Visually, what you can do in here is say, well, let's define this to a certain area or a type of event. Like maybe I wanted to look at the between or plus 10 mil market cap companies over the last 30 days that had drilling results. I think that's what I'd set up on the next one here, or one of these ones. And so we can kind of pull that sort of data out and see, okay, well, like look over the last, I think this is from September forward, who's had drilling results and what's moved the needle, right? Yeah. So that's where you get a lot of visuals into here, because it's important to understand why things are moving. And look, a lot of the time, there's implications to projects that are in the area around it, right? That most of the market misses, because again, it's like nobody can track all this sort of stuff. I shouldn't say nobody, but very few, a select few who are following it and already know what those companies. But a lot of the time, you get to it too late and you miss opportunities. So this is a cool way to be able to get that.
Well, it's a great equalizer, because like you said, I am in this space and I love trying to keep up to speed, but there's so much information that comes out that this can give me that go ahead of like, oh, holy smokes. I haven't looked at Patriot for a while, but you see it pops up. You go, okay, that's significant. And when someone pulls it up on the screen, they look there, they can then find it. Like there's an article talking about, how Ontario's trying to build a corridor there that'll supply all these battery manufacturers. And you see, Volkswagen, they made a deal with Volkswagen. It puts that narrative together visually where you see, so this is where this corridor is going to be to feed in the raw materials to make these batteries, which is going to be here. And that kind of really hits home as to what the infrastructure looks like, how this is going to work, and all that sort of thing. And I think that's it helps to cement in people's minds, how does this industry work?
Yeah, absolutely. And just when we're on Patriot here, so the interface is a little bit different here. It's just a little bit sleeker, I'd say, with how we see things. So we're looking at the news article here specific to that 34% gain here. But we'll have everything else available in here. But if you do want to look at this project and say, okay, well, like what was the drilling that's come out of here, right? You can kind of see a lot of those top intercepts that have come out that they've put out over the course of the year, chronologically. As well as, that project information, if there's any articles put out. So I think these guys are covered by Resource World, Red Cloud. So all that sort of stuff is all going to be kind of linked and tied into here. But furthermore, I mean, like, Patriot's been a pretty big story for a while. But, who else is around it? Like this news, I'd say today is interesting, but like what implications is that going to have for, Brunswick or Asmid or all these other players that are arguably chasing the same sort of thing on the same structure. So it's kind of cool to get that out of it too. And I think it depends on the news event type, right? But something big like that is, look, I mean, that's not a small amount of capital that's going to be going over. There's a lot they can do with that, right? And so that's good for the region as a whole. And I think that's that area play aspect is pretty prominent and being able to see that in here.
No, and I just was thinking another little quick little cheat mode for people that if they're new is that, and you don't know, you could take, when you're looking at this and you say, look at Patriot and their latest assay result or any random one, you can literally just take that and throw it into ChatGPT and ask it. Well,
and I'd say do it on both sides. Do it on the red and the green. See what's not working.
Right? So tell me, why didn't this one work? Why did this one work? It may not give you exactly, it may not know the nuance, it may not know, but it'll give you at least questions to ask a little bit further to go, oh, okay, so that had an effect. And often, I think we may have talked about before, is this is a sector in which you can actually talk to geos, and you can talk to often the CEO or president. They're available. They're not available if you're trying to reach an AI company. Like there's
no, totally. Well, I'd combat back and say that post-COVID, I'd say that the response rate on landlines for companies isn't what it used to be, but, but for the most part, you can get a hold of them. That's for sure. I mean, certainly by email, right? Like, and all these companies have, you know, someone in an IR capacity that's willing to talk to them.
That want to express, if you're sharing some interest. But it's just, I just thought of it's a neat way that once again, you can't rely 100% on these things, but it is a neat way that you could just go, hey, what is this telling me? And you say, yes, these are good results, given these parameters and whatnot. And I think that just kind of for the average person out there who wants to know, how can I kind of get into this and feel a bit more secure? It's at least going to make you feel a bit more secure, as well as maybe pop in some other questions, especially like you said, you look at some of the ones that aren't reflecting, like, whoa, well, why aren't they moving?
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, there's not always a good reason for it, right? Like sometimes the reason is that just, you know, there isn't enough visibility on it or somebody doesn't know. I mean, sometimes it's, you know, like a lot of people will base investments in projects, you know, on the management, which is a key thing, right? And you're looking at track records in the past and obviously what's come out of the region, what the metrics, what it's going to look like, if there's scope, if there's legs to it. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's kind of the famous Lassonde curve, right? And so when we're talking the discovery timeline, there's a lot that you can catch on this side of it and then see the trickle over, because a lot of the time, you know, with news like that, I didn't really look specifically, but I'm sure there's going to be tie over to those other companies in the region around these guys, you know, regardless. And sometimes it's, you know, it's just going to be violent upswings or downswings, depending what the event is, right? So it's a good way to have visibility on it for sure.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like you said, one company, like they could have had even good results, or maybe there's results coming up and no one's paying attention, and that might be a sleeper. So there's opportunities for people, if they play around with this thing and get used to it, that they might be able to uncover something that is developing. And once again, no one's looking. There's too many things to look at, and no one's paying attention to them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can get in a rabbit hole here, chasing
I'm sure. Yeah,
for sure. But I mean, you know, like there's a lot of powerful ways to kind of use this, and I think like it's good to just look at things from a big picture, see what's working, and like if we're talking about somebody kind of coming into the space and learning, you definitely want to do that and figure out like what is relevant, what's moving the needle. Like, so I went on here, and as an example, there's a drilling tab, right? So when we're looking at these emails that come out. If you think of these bars essentially on here as larger circles, so we just alter the size accordingly associated to what's out there. So this is the last 30 days of companies that have put out drilling results. And again, this is always tied to the project. It could be multiple that have come out of a single or multiple news releases tied to one project, but you'll see the biggest one on top. But, you know, so in Quebec as an example, okay, well, like what is a big drilling result, gold specifically? What does that look like? And what are the numbers associated, right? So there's a lot of different ways to use this sort of thing to kind of understand it. And all the filters, you know, in here, we can break it out again by market cap, which is a totally other thing, a market, I should say. Like the Aussie side, that's another, I'd say, big, powerful thing is there's a lot of movement from those companies on our side of the pond. Over the last few years, and it's good to have visibility on it. It was challenging to track that. It still is challenging to track that elsewhere because you just don't really see it, right? The reporting's a bit different, and there's a tremendous volume of news due to the regulations in the Aussie side. So you can miss things and be bogged down by a lot over there with all the regulatory side. But you can see it on here, apples to apples sort of side.
Don't hate me, but I love to ask questions. You just say no, but you mentioned people like to follow management.
Sure.
Is there a way, or is it maybe coming? I don't know, but that I could just go, well, tell me projects that I don't want to say like that someone's involved in. I don't want to say a name either because I don't want to make it promotional. But if I like whatever team, you know what? I'll make it really easy. Great Bear. I like Chris Taylor. Can I pull up every project Chris Taylor is involved in?
Yeah, I mean, oh God, that's a great question. I like a challenge. We've taken on.
Sorry, this is kind of on the spot.
No, but
or is that something that you guys would even consider down the road?
Well, look, I think you might even be able to do it in here. I mean, I don't have a direct search bar where we can tie a person to it.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you could search for, I'm going to assume it's Chris with a CH.
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I could search his name essentially over a given period of time and see anywhere where he pops up.
Very cool.
So we could search it that way. So I'm going to see 96 results here.
Yeah.
So he was mentioned in the Kennerland, like the KLD South Uchi project update, which was pretty recent, 2nd of this month. So we can see it's not going to tell me that, hey, he's
got 13 projects. Yeah.
No, we don't have it at that level. But look, I mean,
but you've got 96 results. Like you've got, like someone could go, oh, okay, there we go.
For sure.
You are pulling it up. Yeah.
Well, and look, like I think that's a hard, like it's hard to track down information, even contact information for a lot of companies. So
yes.
We also don't necessarily give out contact direct information for companies, but definitely you could do it this way and see. Like I don't know what the relation was in Kodiak here, but let's try to figure it out.
Yeah, he's involved with Kodiak. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well,
yeah, that's his project. He also found as well. I just because Great Bears already bought, it was a great win for everyone. So someone might just go, okay, that one was the last biggest exploration. What's he doing now? And that's a way that I kind of encourage people that even just to ask basic questions like that will get people excited. And is there a way to compare projects? Like, and this, once again, this I should have asked pre-head, but can I go and ask like this project here that now is owned by Kinross, like Great Bears asset?
Yeah.
You can pull that up in Kinross right now, and you could show what's going on there, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, you can just search that by company. Like, so we're on the pro side, but the same thing works. The bar is just on the opposite side here. But you could just type in Kinross,
and then boom,
and basically pull it up, right? So we'll see. You could search all projects, or you could go by the specific project if you want to just type that name. So yeah, it kind of works all the same way. I mean, we don't have the full search thing in here for those names, but it would just be a total mess if we were looking at 9.
And that's the thing is, I mean, it's that trade-off between, even whenever I get a piece of software, you're like, I just want to be able to do basic things and not be intimidated, but they've thought through it so well. They're like, yeah, but we want this to be like for like the PhD geo. And that's great if software has that ability to be that complex, but also that could scare people away at the beginning. It's like, okay, I can build into something more complex, but I just want to be able to search around, get some good results, see where these projects are to think like, because some people might just look and go, you know what? I don't know if I'm very comfortable on this continent or in this state or in this province. I don't think they're going to be too, mining positive. For whatever reason that you believe that, you can at least narrow down projects, what they're doing, and what problems might arise or anything like that.
Totally. Yeah. I'm just on the projects tab here. And so I'm just going to search Quebec for copper projects and highlight that sort of thing, right? So what we're going to do now is just pull out, essentially the copper, any project that has copper as a commodity associated with it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of use this again as a resource and kind of highlight whatever it is that you're looking for. So whether it's a geo or whomever, a lot of different applications. It's funny because you took me for a bit of a spin there on searching Chris Taylor. I didn't really even think that we could do that, but I guess you can. So
that's so cool. No, sorry,
glad we got lucky on that one.
Well, just you mentioned management. I thought, oh well, some people they literally just jump from management team, like when if it's the discovery group,
for sure.
They just go, okay, I'm just following that whole group, and you can just have success that way. So there's all sorts of ways that people can research and choose whatever way that they want to. If they're just going to follow this geo for project to project to project. I mean, there's ways that people choose to do things. I think it's neat that right off the bat you were able to do that. And so sorry to put you on the spot, but it was definitely a win.
It's good. Look, I mean, the reason that like how we innovate is we get put on the spot all the time. So it's good to get the questions. The hard part's just making it all intuitive.
Yes. But I mean, it is, and I think that's why we want to keep like this one again to refresh people that this is a perfect time for people to get used to playing with it. And just asking these basic questions and just finding, hey, I like copper. I think it's $25 going to be good for copper or silver. Who are the producers? I mean, you can start to narrow down projects of silver, and start doing research that way. And I think that's what makes it so invaluable.
Yeah, and I guess just to explain how it works in here, so far as which color or which projects are colored versus not, and have more information associated. essentially, like, it doesn't matter what the company is. Every company has the ability to gain access to a dashboard. We have to vet who it is. Obviously, we don't want any imposter coming in, but so there's a verification process. But ultimately, any company can come in, kind of a senior, I'd say, person working there, and essentially claim access to that company. When they do that, they can alter the display of it, because 79 resources here that my cursor's on. It's not my company, but if they want to add different projects that have been asleep for a while, they can do that on here. They can designate them as available for option JV sale, things like that. So there's a lot that they may want to do. So that's why it's usually in their interest to do that. When it comes to ones that are colored, there's just more information populated. That's when our team's actually populating things like COSA resources here. So there's a bit of legwork for our team to populate these layers in and bring this in. We're always happy to do it. But similarly, we're as COSA updates their website throughout the course of the year, we're going to be maintaining this and keeping that fresh alongside it. The other side, like I think I'd mentioned, but for companies, if there are any of them, watching this, this sort of stuff can live on their website as well, which is a nice benefit. Because like, look, for COSA here, these guys are in the Athabasca Basin. There's a lot of M&A that's happened over the last couple of years there.
Yes.
And my background, but prior to the IR Corp Dev side was GIS. So, which is Geographic Information Systems. It's mapping essentially to the layman. And so, we wanted to create a tool within this for companies where they, COSA can have this living on their website. And if any projects are changing hands in the day-to-day, they don't have their GIS person, which used to be me, doesn't need to come in here and update their website map every single day just because next gen got a new project, right? So that's a way it's a nice tool for them, and this sort of stuff is all filterable.
Yes.
At the same time, we make this available for not just companies, but a lot of different trade shows and media players out there.
Yes.
So if anyone, I guess, watching, I got the wrong tab here. Which one is it? Give me one sec. I'll pull up a tab. But for AME and VRIC, that's kind of coming around the corner.
Yeah.
So we'll be providing interactive maps for both of those shows. Man, sorry, I got way too many tabs open.
It's all good.
Basically, we're going to be giving them a couple different products. One of which is going to be, I'll just open a new one here. Let's see. Sorry, technical delay. Stand by.
It's all
okay.
good.
So the AME trade show, so if anyone is going there, this will be available on their website. There's going to be QR codes at the show as well. So we can see, like, okay, this is all the exhibiting companies, be that in the prospector's tent or the course shack or just having, corporate booths. This is where all of their projects are. And we can filter through this and say, okay, well, like, look, I'm interested in copper projects, as we were talking about before. So we can say, all right, show me all the ones that have copper assets and where these guys are and highlight those ones, right?
That's very cool.
And maybe we're looking at, we're interested in the Scandic side of things, right? So we can see that and come in here. And so in this case, it's EMX royalty. They don't own this project, but they have a royalty on it. We can see information associated with it. So this is something we do for AME and a number of different trade shows. It helps them. Obviously we're in a very good position to be able to support and do this, but we already have the same tech for companies. The other side, which is pretty cool, is we're creating for them an interactive floor plan map. So this will also be available at the show. So if you are at the show, you'll be able to scan a QR code and search for, okay, well, where, like, same example, where's the booth locations of these guys? So you're not running to the big wall and running your finger down, right? I mean, and you can just do it on your phone. You can say, okay, well, like, I want to check out, whoever it is. Let's find it. Spanish Mountain Gold, right? Yeah. So where are these guys? Where are the projects? And I can save notes on this on my phone and flag it as somebody I want to go hit, and then download that sort of stuff later. So it's kind of a cool thing. So if you're going to any of these shows and we're sponsoring it, typically this sort of stuff is going to be available as well.
That's super handy because, once again, you have some time right now to go, okay, I think silver and copper or graphite. It's something I think graphite's going to be huge in 2025. What graphite companies are even going to be at one of these shows? Who are they? Where are they going to be? I mean, you could get that already done and go, okay, I put in a little bit of work. There's 3 companies I've got questions to ask. You can show up at those booths and there's going to be someone there and they're going to want to talk to you. So it is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure you've been to your fair share of trade shows, and I mean,
Yeah.
they're a flurry, right? And you're trying to, there's always companies that you didn't get to talk to, or you can't remember what the hell was said. So I
Yes.
think that's where we're just trying to support AME or VRIC kind of coming up here and say, okay, well, let's make something helpful that saves people time. Again, that precious commodity we all kind of struggle with, to be able to save notes, take photos, and things like that, and then have it later.
Yeah, that's what the tool itself, to be able to narrow down to ones that you really want to put the effort into researching about. That's what's critical here, because it's an easy entrance. It's not hard to use. It's an easy interface. It's friendly to use, and once again, for someone to just kind of get involved in it and get excited, they can make a list of 10 companies that they have further questions they would love to chat about, and that just makes life a lot easier than if they just opened up into a channel or to some other platform and go, all right, I don't even know where to start. Like, who are people talking about? Now they can be talking about something that's not even very helpful.
Yeah, well, I think that the chat rooms can do that sometimes, right? And I think, as we said at the beginning, there's a lot of there can be pump and dump scenarios. There's a lot of, I don't want to call it misinformation or state any players or anything like that, but look, there's a tremendous amount of info that comes out in our space. We're talking 3,000 plus publicly traded companies. So, and they're all dropping news. Projects are always changing hands. New ones are being staked. So I think this is the nice kind of modern niche. And prior to this, that's what I'd say, coming back to your first question, kind of inspired, is like, it's a pain in the ass for me prior to this to keep visibility on this effectively. So, and we know there's a demand, right? I mean, I know it from industry side, but certainly on the investor side as well, right? I mean, not everybody has the budget for some of the larger tools out there that are tracking things like that. And I won't say any names in that regard either, but there's some pretty pricey softwares that you can get that try to tackle this sort of thing, but they do it in different ways. And I mean, it's not quite as timely from what I've experienced. So we're happy to kind of support. I think in general, our space needs things like this. We need at a good time, because things, demands are not going down.
No.
But it's good to have things like this, because we're all trying to follow things for whatever the reason might be.
Okay, and just kind of wrap this up, because you kind of touched on it a little bit. What's your sense from your part of the business? Now, I'm not, no one can tell the future, but like, are you sensing that companies like, oh no, we like what you're doing, but no, we want to get out there. We're optimistic about what's happening. What's your sense of, from your business focus? Is it growing? Are you feeling like, oh no, we're getting a lot of interaction, there's a lot of interest, there's people are reaching out?
Do you mean that from, I was thinking you were talking about my sentiment, like the sentiment on the market.
The sentiment on the overall space in mining, but I'm not asking you like as far as where you think prices are going or if the market's going up and down, but from what you're seeing in your business, like from the reach out from companies, like if you're finding, oh no, they're reaching out, they're optimistic, they want to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, when it comes to our side, as far as, there's a couple different buckets here, but if it's client adoption on our side, it's been good for us since inception here. But I think it's mainly because we're tackling a lot of needs. We're helping these companies at the end of the day, at a very reasonable price. When it comes to how these companies are doing, like, it's been a tough year out there, particularly for a lot of the juniors. And I think a lot of them have just been, sometimes keeping the lights on. Financing terms haven't always been favorable. But look, we had, the recent election on the state side. I'm sure that there's going to be implications, in the new year for where that's going to go. I think Canada's up for the Fed change next year as well, which will be interesting to see where that goes. I've heard, all sides of the spectrum in the last month or two from companies out there of where their gut is landing. But typically, I'd say in January, like, there's a bit of excitement, there's a bit of movement. Like right now, everyone's getting ready to settle into the holidays and catch their breath a bit. But it's been a tough year out there. There's no doubt about it for companies. But for us, we try to just keep evolving so far as how we can support them on their day to day. And ultimately, there's a finite amount of capital, I'd say, that invests in this space. Traditionally, and largely because there is that high bar, right? But I think it's also a very interesting time to be able to start getting educated and make plays in here, because there's a lot of undervalued projects out there, companies out there that at some point, it'll be that classic hindsight moment where you're like, man, like, I could have caught that one. And they're there, right? They're hard to,
Yeah.
they're not always easy to spot when, especially in a market like this where so many of them look depressed. But I think that's where you cue into those teams, things like that associated to it, or the location, like, and get a little bit of a general knowledge of okay, well, like what has bumped up in Quebec and like why. So like let's cross-reference the drilling and what's moved the needle versus the financings versus the M&A and get a bit of a bearing. And stages, commodities, right? And a lot of that general stuff is out there, right? People are talking about it, but you can use this sort of system to correlate and sort fact from reality and find opportunities.
Yeah, and in one place, one hub. I mean, it's a hub, and that's whenever we happened across you, because I know that like an investment bank or a brokerage, they have their own internal models, but they have the budget to do that, and they track data and everything else. Yeah. But that's very specific. They're not going to share that. And then there isn't anyone really doing what you're doing. I mean, there's bits and pieces, and you try to cobble things together. If I do it on my own, that we came across you, and it was like, holy smokes, wait a second. These guys are putting it all together in one spot. Like all the data can be there. It's just a matter of visibility. And that's why, to me, we want to give you the visibility, because we want more companies to come on the platform, because it makes my life easier. And if it's easy to use for me, it's easy for me to research companies and to keep ahead of the curve. It certainly is for any retail investor, because they don't have that. And it's easy, especially for someone new, to be drawn away by a narrative rather than necessarily, here's the actual data. I can research this simply, effectively, and I can challenge someone. Even if I hear something, oh, this company is going to the moon. You can go, okay, which company? Type it in, look at their assays, and find out, oh, are they? That doesn't look great. Or, yeah, there's something here. And that was missing. And I think that you guys have filled a huge need.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah, and it's we'll keep evolving it, like in going forward. But I'm always happy to kind of share anything that we're doing here. I mean, is there any asks, I say, on your side? Anything that we proved we proved we could do the one on Chris Taylor there. Anything else you're trying to pull?
Well, I mean,
you want a social security number? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, what would be actually kind of cool too. I mean, and this would be along the same breath as you go. Let me try to narrow down a company rather than, if you said, can you search by money? So Sprott's too easy. It's going to pull up every single company. How many companies does Sprott put money into? But could you say X fund, like the Franklin Templeton or something like that? What show?
Same way, yeah, because I mean, it's just you're searching, it's a keyword search, right, associated, and so it's going to pull any article, any news release in our system and spit that out for sure. Yeah. I think maybe to your earlier point, like towards teasers, right, is like better breakouts of the financials. So right now you can pull out where financings are happening and that sort of thing. But I think in future,
I've got a good one. Sorry to cut you off. Just one popped in my head. This would be interesting, and this would be because I'm trying to think of challenging ones now for you. Could you do something where I go, oh, which ones are Crescat Capital involved in but have 20% ownership?
Oh, that's a good one.
There we go.
Trying to think if you can do that right now, so I don't say I have to.
It would be tough because they'd have to announce somewhere in CDR somewhere saying we have somewhere at some point, but along the way. But that's an interesting one.
Yeah, well, so I guess what I can say to it is that I'd say yes, but it'll be via the pro service, like in some of the features in that side, and so there's ways that you can really organize information. So whether we're looking at a market cap of a company or shares outstanding or other parameters that might be more on the financial side, there's things that you'll be able to pull in there, and then keyword search associated with that. But I would say give it a little bit of time for that. Give it a couple months.
No, good. Well, it's good to know it's coming as well, because that means we can have a show where we actually maybe go through how that search looks like. Because once again, for people just to ask those questions and go, is that a valid question to ask? Yeah, you could decide that that's part of your research. You only like this company. Like if you like their model and what they've been looking at and how they're finding things. Once again, it's no guarantee of success, but there's bright people over there. You can leverage that. For sure. Teams and money and all these things to narrow down who else is involved in this project. They've got good results. So anyways, it's very neat to be able that you can, even whether it's a couple months, hone in on that type of thing as well, because that makes research a lot easier for people.
Yeah, well, I think that's what the sector needs. That's what the space needs. We need, a newer demographic to kind of come into this and fill the void. And there's a lot of opportunity for the ones that are savvy enough to pick up on it and take a little bit of risks in some of it. Obviously, doing it intelligently and doing their homework. But there's a lot of capital that gets invested outside of the space and in equally volatile sectors. Let's say, put it that way. I won't say any names, but tools like this are going to support that. And I mean, we're poised to get there. When we do talk about the demands of current and future here, we're way behind, I think, as you're aware. So
yes, it's
an interesting time. We'll see where it all shakes out in January here.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because my favorite for the last 2 weeks of annoyance is I was under the impression that a lot of times people were scared of this market because of risk, that the risk tolerance, like, oh, it's risk capital, it's speculative. The last 2 weeks I've been following Fartcoin, and this is actually a thing. It's a meme. It doesn't do anything.
Right.
It has over $1 billion market cap right now. Like, it's utterly insane. Like, it's totally, and it's a reflection of where we are in society. But that kind of woke me up to the idea that no, risk isn't the issue. That's not that people, especially young people, have no problem of having speculative risk.
Yeah.
It's just they need to understand, what am I doing in this thing? Now, in Fartcoin, they're just pump and dumping and they're playing each other. And that's fine. I mean, you can have your own ethical, moral, whatever, regulatory issues with that coin. But to me, that just was an eye opener to that. Listen, there is risk capital out there, and there are real projects out there in the junior space that can have massive asymmetric gains. And if we are able to pull in, and let's say it's $1 billion market cap, let's just say only 10% of that's actually cash. That's still, that's 100 million of Fartcoin that could be applied to. Well, it even take mining out. It could go to robotics. I mean, it could go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, even just to date stamp this for later. I mean, if you're looking at the news from this week, we're talking about the drones in the States, right? And
yes,
it's a wild time, I'd say, with what's going on out there. But I think at the same time, a lot of people are asleep on this. But I hope that in the kind of near term here, people are going to kind of figure it out. And there's a lot of money that can be made in our space. It's still risk though.
It's still risk, and that's fine. And people need to be aware that it is R&D or a speculative risk. It's not easy stuff. But one of the big problems I've always thought was the entry, the barrier. And this is a process. It's easy to use. And once again, it's free. Just get in there. Just sign up, play around with it. You've got a couple of weeks off from work and stuff. Play around with it. The tool. It becomes fun, because you can start to ask questions and you'll get the answers fairly quickly. And that's really what we want, is to break down any barrier, or to stop people that they can go, I can come to one place and at least get a lot of my needs kind of met. And then I've got bigger, further questions. And once again, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Rick Rule. You can reach out to, you can come to an event here. So it's VRIC or AME coming up the next month. So there is opportunity for you to get in physically in front of people as well. Never mind by email or phone.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Rick. I was just thinking of him, and it's a lot of the when you hear Rick talking how he kind of does his investments, right? Like, what does he always say? He's like, he loves it when people hate, on a commodity, right? And so just as even a simple search type here, it's like, okay, well, what commodity is getting kicked the hardest at the moment, right? Well, where are those projects, right? And like, what are the stages, and like if you're in the capacity to be able to do some long plays here, this is a pretty amazing way that these projects a lot of the time aren't going to be in the news, right? Because nobody cares about them right now. Yeah. But it's a good way that you can get visibility on this sort of stuff and hedge your bets for later.
And it's so true. It just comes back to, will people ever use nickel again? Yeah, they're going to use nickel. Will people ever use copper again? Yeah, they're going to be using copper forever. So it is a great, it isn't the speculative side of the meme coin type of thing where there's no need for it. They're just people just going crazy. Is that you have a commodity with cycle within a cycle. And whenever you find some of these just hated metals, it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
Excellent. Well, Carl, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to having more and more of these in 2025 because we want to shine a light on what you guys are doing. It's awesome. And, because once again, anything that breaks down that barrier to entry and helps people and gives them data, that gives them facts.
Much appreciated. I appreciate the shout out and thanks for your time equally. Yeah, it's app.mininghub.com. You can do the sign up for the daily there. And play with your leisure. There's info at Mining Hub as well. If you have any comments or feedback, things like that, just hit us up with it. We do look at everything, so it's always good. If you have random asks like you did there, Andrew, fire them in there and we'll respond.
Perfect.
Great.
Excellent, Carl. Well, we really appreciate it. Once again, all the best, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Okay. Take care.
Take care.